Hey mixtapers, today I'm going to be talking about MIDI and giving you an introduction to what MIDI is. First we're going to open up Cubase here on the desktop. Cubase is a digital audio program that I use for creating all of my compositions and music. I use it because it has such a strong MIDI side. So you can use Cakewalk and Pro Tools and many of the other programs, but Cubase has a much stronger MIDI aspect to it built in. So here we go. We're going to start a new project. We'll create an empty project. There we go. Alright, and now normally I could come in here and just start laying down guitar tracks or vocal tracks or whatever it is that I might want to work on. But instead, I'm going to come in here and create a new MIDI track. And so this will go ahead and give me my new MIDI track here. For those of you who don't know what MIDI is note data. So you're not actually recording sound, you're not recording notes. What you're recording is the data of those notes, and then you can use that data to play it back and manipulate it in any way that you can imagine. So let's say that I had my digital piano, my keyboard, and I decided to play a riff in on the piano, okay? If I was recording that as audio, it would forever sound that way. It would forever sound like a piano, and I couldn't change the volume, or if I maybe made a mistake on one note and played it a little early, I couldn't change that because it's all recorded as audio. However, as MIDI, instead of it recording the sound of those notes, it records which notes I hit, how hard I hit them, and when I hit them. So I can take and edit those notes at any time by moving how long those notes play for, by moving how hard I hit them, and by moving around even the order that I play the notes in. Let's say I wanted to swap the last two notes with each other. I could easily do that using MIDI. So I'm going to show you an example of that today. Now, to get those notes to actually play something, you need one of two things. You need either a synthesizer, like a Casio keyboard or something like that, or you need a virtual library. I'm going to be using virtual libraries today, which we're not going to go into the details of a whole lot here, because I'm going to save that for another video. But basically, you need a synthesizer or a virtual library to play back your MIDI data. Okay, so the first instrument sound we're going to work with is a piano. So I've loaded up my piano here in a program called Contact. Contact is a virtual instrument player, so you can load instruments up into into Contact, and then you can play them back using MIDI notes. So here's just what our piano sounds like. I'm going to pluck a couple of keys here with my mouse. So you kind of get a full range of what everything sounds like there. So that's the piano that we're going to be using. Now let's say that these are some of the notes that I played in using my keyboard. So I could come over here and play them back. You'll notice that each note in here lines up with a note on the keyboard over to your far left. So that's the note that it's going to be playing. How long it is the duration of the note. So here you have the different measures. Here's a 13th measure, 14th measure, and you break it down into eighth notes. So we can have these, you know, as eighth note lengths or even as 16th notes here. So I'm just going to play this back real quick so you can see. Now again, this is not an audio recording, but the data is being played back in real time using the sounds of a piano. Okay, so there it is on the piano. Now what we can do is take that same data played on the piano and we can switch it over now to a violin. So here's my violin. And we're going to take those same notes that we just had and we're going to play them back on the violin. So as you can see, you're not limited to just what you recorded. I could take those notes and put them on to any instrument I think possible. Now let's say that I recorded these notes and they sound fine, but let's say I want them an octave lower, okay? Now if I had recorded this as audio, I would have to go back and re-record it on the violin an octave lower. But here in Cubase, I can just select the notes that I want and transpose them down an octave. And bam, now when I play them back, they'll be an octave lower. Okay? So that's the power of MIDI. Hopefully you guys are starting to understand a little bit about how the performance that you can can capture, you can then take and edit any way you want. So let's undo that and bring these back up an octave. Now let's say that first note was a little short. Let's say I want it to be a quarter note instead of an eighth note, okay? I can just click on it and drag it out. And now it's a quarter note instead of an eighth note. Okay, now we're going to switch back to the piano sound for just a little bit for our next example. Now, the cool thing about the MIDI stuff is that not only can you control the time frames of the notes and all that fun stuff that I just showed you, but you can also control how hard the notes are hitting. So the harder you hit a piano key, the louder it's going to be. Okay? But the softer you hit it, the quieter it's going to be. Okay, and with MIDI you can go in and edit that. So have you ever like maybe performed on a piano and recorded yourself and there's like one or two notes that you either hit too softly or missed or hit them too hard? Well, you can go back in now and edit that. So that's called your velocity. So we're going to come down here and take a look at velocity for our notes. Okay, and as you can see, these are pretty steady. There's some of them that are lower, which means they're a softer sound, and some of them that are higher, which means they're a harder sound. Now let's say playing this back that I want the first note to be much harder than it is. So let's go ahead and listen to it first for a second. Okay, but let's say I want that to start way harder. Okay, I can come down here with my pencil and just adjust the velocity. And so now the first note will be hit much harder than the rest of the notes. So you can go in there and precisely edit your entire performance. So there's a lot more I could show you on the topic of MIDI. We're going to have to break this up into a couple of different parts, so this video will go on for forever. For those of you who are curious about the melody that we were playing with a little bit earlier, I'm going to show that melody to you in context now. And this is all using string quartet sounds. But again, this is all complete MIDI. There's no audio, actual audio being played here.